Okay, let's get started. Good morning, everybody, from going to be very hot Melbourne in Australia. Today is Friday for me, Friday morning. It's 8 o'clock in the morning. And I wanted to do this early and get things over and done with because today we are expecting temperatures well over 100 degrees in the old way that we used to have before we went to Celsius. And today in Melbourne, it's going to be over 44 degrees Celsius. So we're going to get what's called a north wind, which is very, very hot here and outside. Probably in about 5 hours or so, it's going to feel like an oven. So today is the last for this year of my Ask Kerry questions. And this is something that I've been running in my group, my support group on Facebook, which is called EA Support, which is no good looking for or trying to find now because that's actually going to be closing down. I've been doing that every day for over 2 years in the group, supporting, helping, moderating, running the group. And as from the end of January, that group will be closing down. And this is something that I did for the members of the group just to give them an opportunity to ask about my own journey, to ask about any emotional issues that they were facing or struggling with. And then I would save those videos and they would go into the archives of the group as a bit of a resource. I've done this probably a couple of times here on the page. And from next year, I want to make this a regular monthly thing. So I'll do one of these once a month and give you the opportunity to ask me any questions. So if you're watching, post a little comment so that I know that you're there. Just say hi. And all of the questions this time are anonymous. We've got some very good questions that I'm sure a lot of them you will relate to. And I don't rehearse the answers for these questions. I always just like them to be organic. So I've basically just printed them out this morning and I'm going to read them out and just give you my thoughts off the top of my head. So let's get going with the first question, which is from Anonymous One. Anonymous One posted this question. An Anonymous One says, "Hi, I have a question I wanted to post anonymously. I'm struggling to accept my illness. It's been about 2 years since I have been ill. I feel like if I accept it, I'll keep trying to fight it so hard and just give up. I want to try and get better, but I have no idea if it's even possible. How do you reconcile these opposing feelings of wanting to accept your illness, but also not wanting to give up fighting? Thank you so much." Okay, Anonymous One. This is a very common thing for people to go through. And the answer is really in the question that you've posed to me, because I personally don't believe that chronic illness is something that I am fighting. I'm not fighting the illness. Initially, I was fighting for my life. I was fighting for my health. And what that meant was I was looking for the answers. So I was looking for the solutions. I was looking for something I could do because I knew that some circumstances or something had created the illness and created the position that I found myself in. And it only made logical sense to me that if conditions created the experience that I was having, then there must be a way to either help it or to perhaps reverse some of the symptoms. I wasn't sure what was possible. What I did feel like I was fighting for was acceptance, support and understanding from doctors, and to get people to believe me and to get people on my side. But the illness never felt like something that I was fighting. It felt like something that I needed to understand. It felt like something that I needed to help and support and accept where I am. And the reason I take this stance, Anonymous One, is that when you fight something, you make it the enemy. And when you make something the enemy, you are more likely to be in a constant state of fight, flight, or freeze, which means that's the opposite of healing. For healing requires that we are in rest and digest phase. We want the body to be relaxed. We want ourselves to be relaxed and as calm as we possibly can be. So I've never seen the 3 chronic illnesses that I have as the enemy, because if I make them the enemy, the first response I'm going to have is that I'm scared of them. And if I'm scared of them, then that's just going to make things worse for me. It's real. It's real. It's my reality. It's something that I have, and fighting it was not going to go away, because it's not something that I can beat. You don't beat chronic illness. You integrate it into your life and you coexist with it. So this analogy might help you. This is something I share with my clients, but it's just a little mind shift skill that helps you to accept the illness. And it might sound weird, and I don't care. It helps. Whatever helps, whatever works, then that helps me. So what I did was I decided that my illness was a creature. It is a creature that has come to live in my body, and it doesn't want to be there, and I don't particularly want it to be there, but we're stuck. We're stuck together. And what came into my mind was a bear. So just imagine that I'm stuck with this bear, this big grizzly bear. It's stuck in my body, and it's been lashing out, and it's been hurting me and harming me and causing me health and all different sorts of issues. And the more I fight against that bear, the more I try and poke the bear, the more I tell it to go away, the more I yell that I don't want it, the angrier it gets, the more upset it gets. And the more upset it gets, the more we all suffer. But if I accept the bear and I try and create some nice, comfortable conditions for the bear, and I feed the bear well, and I try and befriend it, and I make it my mission that we are going to coexist very peacefully as we can, then the bear goes to sleep. And when the bear goes to sleep, then my symptoms remit and I experience better health. So that's just a little mind shift trick you can use. Decide whatever it is, just intuitively. And the interesting thing is, when I do this with my clients, the animal that they come up with unconsciously always seems to have a very specific meaning. If you look up the meaning of that specific animal, what it means as either a totem or a spirit animal or a guardian animal or all of those different sorts of things, whether you believe that or not, it's often quite apt in how that happens. So you can certainly try that, Anonymous, and see that if that helps. Now, for the second part of your question, how do you reconcile them? Well, if there's no opposing feelings, because acceptance is eminently practical. Like if I had a broken leg and I didn't want to accept the fact that I had a broken leg, and I wasn't going to let that broken leg define me, and I was going to fight against that broken leg, and I'm going to continue to try and walk on that broken leg, I'm going to find myself in a world of pain, right? I'm going to make everything worse. I would probably require surgery in the end and be left with a lot worse condition than what I originally had if I'd have just accepted the fact that I had a broken leg and took the appropriate steps to deal with the broken leg. So acceptance isn't giving up. That's not true. Accepting a situation is saying, well, here's what it is. Now what am I going to do about it? Well, what am I going to do to help myself to deal with that? So there are plenty of things that we can do as people living with chronic illness to help ourselves. And there's actually 98% of the things that we do are the things that are going to help us. It's not so much the drugs, it's not so much the tests, it's not so much the supplements, while they all help, of course. 98% of what we do is what makes the difference. So how we approach the illness, the boundaries that we set, the foods that we eat, I made a post the other day asking, what is the one thing that you wish that you did consistently that would help you? And we all know there are things that we can do to help ourselves. It's a matter of going through that resistance, breaking through that resistance, finding out why we self-sabotage, finding out why, we can't seem to get it together, changing our attitudes, making all of those little mind shift changes that are going to help you embrace the things that you want to do that are going to help you create better health for yourself. So there's no need to fight the illness. It's not your enemy. It's something that happened to you like a broken leg. Now, that's a very simplistic analogy, I know, because what we live with is a lot more impactful than a broken leg, but the whole concept is the same. You are where you are. Now, screaming against that, hating it, not wanting to be there isn't going to change the fact you are where you are. So you can accept where you are, which is, well, this is what I've got. And in my case, what I've got is Hashimoto's, celiac disease, and antiphospholipid syndrome. They're all autoimmune. They're not going to go away. But what I can do by integrating them into my life and changing the way that I live until it becomes habitual, that has changed my life to the point where I am as you see me now, whereas 5 years ago I was physically and cognitively disabled. That's what's made the biggest difference, plus getting adequate thyroid hormone replacement, changing my diet, changing my thought processes, setting new boundaries, like a whole lot of stuff. If I told you everything that I've done, you would think the list would be overwhelming, but they're just small steps that I've added over the last 5 years that have ended up making a big difference. And the only thing you need to do is take one step, like one change, and just do that in the day. Like, don't think about 10 years. Don't think about that. Just think about doing it today. That's basically all you have to do today. Choose that one habit that you want to change. And then when you get up tomorrow, it'll still be today. And then you make that one change again. You don't need to fight it, because fighting it makes it the enemy. And when you make it the enemy, your subconscious mind, because it believes everything you literally think, will create a lot of fear and a lot of anxiety and a lot of hatred and a lot of resentment, and none of that's going to help you. So, Anonymous 1, I hope that's answered your question. All right. Anonymous 2. And please feel free to ask some questions. I don't have my glasses on at the moment because I did myself some really nice big print here. But I will put my glasses on at the end. So if you've got any questions, you can ask and I'll make some time to answer those. So, quick drink. Okay, Anonymous 2, I have a question. How do you get out of the guilty feelings of being sick? I stayed home with my boys for 22 years, just got done being my dad's person in charge of all his care with MS for 5 years. And now I am sick and I don't have the energy to go back to school or work. I feel so lost. My husband supports us, but I feel bad. I always thought at this time I would go back to work. I also have some anxiety over caring for my dad and watching him pass from MS. Hard when you have chronic illness yourself. I read a post you shared about chronic illness to my husband. Thanks so much. I feel so understood by reading your page. Well, I'm very happy to hear that my page helps you feel more understood and helps you to get a little bit of answers and a little bit of reassurance and relief. So how do you let go of the guilty feelings of being sick? Well, the only way to do that, Anonymous 2, is to understand that this isn't your fault. And it's not something you've created, and it's not something you deserve. And guilt is like all of our emotions, right? It has a purpose, and there are no good or bad emotions. And if you want to know a little bit more about this, I talked about this in the last Facebook Live that I did, which was last week. You can go to the videos on the page and you'll be able to see that. And I think the title is, from memory, Is positive thinking ultimately not helpful when it comes to chronic illness or something like that? Or does positive thinking do more harm than good? And in that I go into, the emotions and what they're for and what they're supposed to do. So the whole concept of guilt came about what we learn right from wrong as children, right? What's the right thing to do? What's the wrong thing to do? In a religious sense, in a moral sense, in an ethical sense. And guilt always comes up to let us know as a signal that we are out of alignment with who we are and what we believe in and our own personal, moral code about what's right or wrong. So chronic illness doesn't fall under that because it's not something that we did. It's not something we set up to deliberately create. It's not something that through our, actions is a punishment of some sort. It is a cosmic car accident of life. So it just happens. There is no rhyme or reason. It just happens. And bad things happen to good people. And chronic illness is one of those things that just happens. So a lot of people feel shame and guilt from chronic illness because of the way that it is viewed by the majority of our society, who don't take it seriously, who think we must be lying or making it up or, hypochondriacs, or we have a mental illness or something like that. And because it's not legitimized or it's not validated or it's not taken seriously, then it's very hard for us to fully embrace and accept and feel, strongly about the fact that this is real and it is not my fault and it is actually happening and it does have a profound and huge impact on my life and it has changed me and I do feel like I've lost myself, and in the process of that I often feel alone and misunderstood and blamed and shamed, and so guilt comes into it from that. So there's those two factors. One, we feel like we must have done something wrong to create this, and other people certainly don't help with that because a lot of people do feel blamed and shamed for having chronic illness. But the reality of us, and again, these are all the mind shift things that I go through myself and use myself and I teach to my clients, is that guilt is completely unnecessary in this situation because it's absolutely not your fault. And you can look back at a post in my feed, it's still there. The post is a nice big image, which is me saying I am unapologetically chronically ill. I am unapologetical about it because I have nothing to apologise for. It's not my fault. I haven't done anything wrong. I have nothing to be ashamed of. It's my life. That's the way it is, and I'm not going to feel guilty about that. Why would I feel guilty about something that's not my fault? So I would invite you, Anonymous, to delve into why you feel guilty, like why out of all the emotional responses that you're capable of having to the circumstance of your life, which is having chronic illness, you are choosing guilt. Now, is that coming because you believe this is somehow your fault? Or is that coming because you believe that you are letting people down, or making other people suffer, or making other people feel uncomfortable, all of which I assure you, you cannot do. Their reactions to your experience of chronic illness are their own. You can't do any better than you're doing now. That's it, that you have literally nothing to feel guilty about because you're not doing anything wrong. Your life has changed. The life you thought you were going to have, which you said you thought you would go back to work, and you thought you would have more energy, you thought, things would be different. Chronic illness has taken that future away from you, and that's something to grieve. Things are very different now through no fault of your own. So I hope that's answered that first part of your question is, how do you get rid of the guilty feelings of being sick because you haven't done anything wrong? And the reality of your life is that things have changed, which means other people need to start accepting the fact that things have changed, and you need to start accepting that too and making your peace with it and finding what you can do within whatever limitations that you have And as I said in response to Anonymous 1, it's up to you to find the ways that are going to help you to make peace with where you are and accept the situation and do what you can. Now, that's not an easy thing, and I hope nobody watching thinks it was easy for me. It wasn't. It wasn't easy. I went through a lot of grieving. I went through a lot of anguish. I went through a lot of pain. I went through a lot of fear. I went through a lot of resistance in changing. I often despaired. Would I ever get better? I had no certainty. I didn't know if I was going to live. I didn't know if I would ever work again. I didn't know what was capable for me. I didn't know I could ever be like this again. It was something I wouldn't have even dared to think of. I just did every day what I could do and hoped that the things that I was doing would somehow make some sort of difference to my health and my life. And I didn't know what that was going to be, because that's the thing about chronic illness. It's the unknown, and it's the uncertainty that nobody can tell us with any sort of absolute confidence about what the future holds or what we're going to be capable of, or how much healing is possible. And that's a really lonely and isolating place to be. And that's one of the biggest issues that we have. So please don't think I take this lightly. It's not lightly. Chronic illness hit my life like a wrecking ball. It destroyed everything. I couldn't work. I could barely function. I thought my life was over. And every day has been sort of a surprise in terms of how far I've been able to come and how much better I feel these days, even with the chronic illness that I have. So Anonymous 2, you've got a lot to work through. It would have been very, very, you've given up 22 years of your life to stay home with your children, which is a big sacrifice. And you, as you said, you've just got done being your dad's person in charge of all his care. So you're going through that whole process of watching him suffer and trying to support him and dealing with the loss of the father that you knew that was lost to chronic illness, and all of the things of watching him going through his passing. And that's a difficult thing, that there's a lot of grief in that, and you definitely need support for that. And of course there's going to be anxiety. So I think what you need to do is understand that guilt is a useless emotion in this case. This isn't your fault. You've absolutely done the best that you can in a very, very difficult situation, and you're giving all that you can give. And you've got to put some time into yourself. So wasting that precious energy that we have, very limited amounts of, is not serving you. Now, in this situation, generally, from my professional perspective, it is very difficult to move on with this on your own. You are going to need some external support from a trained professional who has some understanding of chronic illness and all of the very unique challenges that it has. Now, I do offer a free 25-minute discovery session with me. What that entails is you book in, it's all online. It's done by a video very similar to this, but on a different platform. It is not therapy. It's just an opportunity to meet me, to tell me what your situation is, whatever you're willing to share. It's absolutely free. I will listen to what you have to say. If I believe I can help you, I'll tell you exactly which of my 3 programs I would recommend that will help you. I will tell you what I do. I'll tell you why I do it. I'll tell you how it works. I'll tell you how that could potentially give you the solutions you're looking for. I will give you all of the prices, which are charged in Australian dollars via PayPal. I do not want an answer from you at the time of the appointment. I never ask for that. I will ask you instead to go away, think about it for a week, talk about it with your husband. I will email you all the information. Once I email you, I don't contact you again. This is not a sales call. For most therapy, you actually need to pay and book a session or use your insurance to meet that person and have an actual session to find out who they are and whether you feel comfortable with them or not. It's going to cost you money to do that. So I am just offering this as a free service so that if you do decide to work with me, you are fully informed about exactly what I do and how I do it and how it all works. You know what the pricing is, you know what to expect, and then you go away and think about it. There's no catch, there's no obligation. It's not a sales call. It's just something that I provide because that's how I work. That's how I run my business. I know in the years that I was getting therapy that a fit is very important. Therapy is a very, very personal relationship, and you want to feel that you're in the best possible hands. You want to feel that the person has all the skills you need, and you want to feel that they are somebody that you can trust and somebody that you have confidence in, that is the right person to support you on that journey. So that is open to you. All you need to do is book it. And if any of you thinking about that, if you do make a booking, what I do request is you please commit to it and please do show up at the time of the session. I will send you all of the reminders. I will make it as easy as possible to know all about how to meet up with me, how there are instructions, how to set up the Zoom. You will know when the time is. If for any reason you need to cancel, you are able to do that. I just please request. I'm giving you my time for free. If you could honour and respect that by showing up for the session, because I do show up at every single discovery session, and it is a waste of my time to be sitting there waiting online for somebody to show. Because especially when it's an evening appointment for me, because that's when I'm most tired and I would prefer to be, just relaxing and using my time for better things. So Anonymous 2, I hope that has answered your question. Okay, last question from Anonymous 3. I find that sometimes the people who are the least understanding are some friends of mine who also have chronic illness. Rather than being supportive, I always feel judged by them. Why do they do this? Okay. This is a really good question, and it happens a lot, and the psychology of this is very interesting. And you see this all the time, specifically in groups of people who follow particular healing protocols, whether that's things like taking iodine, or whether it's specific diet support groups, or whether it's specific medication support groups or disease support groups. When we experience something and we find some sort of solution or some sort of peace with it, or we seem to be able to live fairly well with it, then one, we believe that everybody who has our condition feels the same way, because as human beings, our biggest problem is we believe that everybody should think and feel the way we do. We believe everybody should believe what we believe. We think everyone should have the same faith, the same ideas, the same morals, the same belief. We believe that people should do for us what we are willing to do for them, and that is not the case. Everybody experiences everything differently. So you may have exactly the same diseases as I do, but I will experience them in a different way because of the way my body works, because of how much damage has been done, because of what I've gone through in my life, because of my unique experiences, because of my environment, because of my obligations and responsibilities, because of my economic situation. There's a whole lot of different things. So people get this idea, like I said, you'll see it all the time, that once it works for them, then it should work for you. And if it doesn't work for you, then you're doing something wrong, or you must be making too much of it, or you must be exaggerating. So what might happen is you might know people with the same disease as you. So let's just say Hashimoto's for the point of discussion. But that person's experience of Hashimoto's, well, not a lot of damage has been done. it doesn't seem to affect them the way that it affects you. They don't have any issues with their medication, whatever they're using. They just take their tablet, their capsule, and they get on with their lives because either there's no other cofactors that are going on, or there's not a lot of damage that's been done, and it honestly doesn't affect them that much. And because of that, when you say, well, I can't get out of bed with my Hashimoto's, like I can't even function, like I'm exhausted all the time, and they simply can't understand that, right? Because it's not their experience of Hashimoto's, because they believe that their experience is the way that everybody experiences Hashimoto's. So they will disbelieve your experience. And that can feel very judgmental and very blaming and all of those sorts of things. So those friends are unfortunately not safe for you to confide in about your experience of Hashimoto's or whatever your illness is, because they can't get into your shoes. Their experience is what they think everybody else is going through, and everybody else just must be exaggerating or lazy or making too much of it or whatever. So they're only really one step removed from the normal person on the street. At least they have a concept of the illness, but the way the illness impacts them, it's quite minor, and it doesn't change their lives like your life has been changed. So that's why people do that. So what's really important when your experience of chronic illness is very different to other people around you is to try to find others who are having your experience. We need to find that tribe. We need to find that person, if it's one person. Now, what I have found is that online, like groups, so online you have a much greater chance of finding people who understand what you're going through rather than in your personal circle. That is probably where you're going to need to look for some sort of support. So I'd recommend finding a good group, or follow a page like this one, or find somebody. Again, you always have the option to book a free discovery session with me so that you can get some, not only support and understanding, but we can deal with any trauma, or we can deal with any beliefs that are not supporting you. I can give you all different sorts of practical tools and skills that are going to help you feel better about yourself and feel more resilient and feel more in control and be able to take some action steps to improve your relationships and set boundaries and not feel so affected by other people's judgment or what other people think, and become, like me, unapologetically chronically ill. This is your experience, and there's nobody really who can say that your experience is invalid, because it's your lived experience. And just not invest any more time or support in those friends. Understand that they are giving you all that they can give you. That's the reality of it. They're not going to understand, and every time you open yourself up, you're just giving them an opportunity to shoot you down. So don't give them that power. Don't confide in them. If they ask you how you're feeling, just go, yep, everything's going great. Just say that. Say something flippant like that. Don't open yourself up. Don't make yourself vulnerable, because they are not safe for you to deal with. So Anonymous 3, I hope that has explained why people do that, the psychology behind it, and a little bit about how you can help yourself to deal with it. So question time. Anybody got any questions of me? Please ask me now. If you don't have any questions now and you're watching this on the replay, you can always ask some questions in the comments, and I'll come back in the comments and give you a quick response. So time to put on the glasses and just see. Joe Mama, hi, hello, Joe Mama, how you going? Thanks for watching. Jackie Bell, hi, Jackie, and Ohima, I'm sorry, not I'm pronouncing that right. Thank you for watching. So, any questions? Any questions for me? I'll have a quick drink while I'm waiting for that to be. So as I said, I'm from next year, I'm going to be holding these once a month. So maybe around in the middle of the month. I'll try and advertise it as much as I can on the page before, so to give you enough time to send me some questions. You can always choose to be anonymous, as our 3 questionnaires have today. So it doesn't look like there's any questions. So thank you for those who tuned in and watched. And you have a fantastic day. Okay, bye for now.